This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The content herein is based on historical accounts, public records, and folklore. Viewer discretion is advised. The creator of this channel does not claim responsibility for any actions taken by viewers outside the intended purpose of this video.
Every year, across the country, a tragedy unfolds. A young, athletic man goes missing. A family is torn apart, and the community is shaken. Days or weeks later, his body is found in a body of water, seemingly drowned. The cause of death is ruled accidental. But for many families, this answer never felt right. The case of Jason Hawthorne was just the beginning. For his mother, Pam, the truth of her son's death would never be so simple. And as she began to speak out, others followed suit, leading to the discovery of a pattern that could suggest something far darker. It started with Jason Hawthorne. Pam's son, a college student with a bright future, was found dead in a river, days after disappearing from a local bar. The official cause of death, accidental drowning. But there were so many unanswered questions. Jason had been missing for over a month, and yet his body showed no signs of the typical decomposition you'd expect for someone submerged for so long. There were marks on his neck, almost like ligature wounds, and there was no sign of struggle, no robbery, no obvious motive. Just a young man's life cut short and an explanation that made no sense to his mother. Pam wasn't the only one who questioned the findings. Soon, other families started to speak out. The Homeman family, the Hurley family, all of them had lost their sons in ways that mirrored Jason's case. Young, athletic, well-liked, these men shared a disturbing commonality. They vanished after a night out and were found days later in bodies of water. Their deaths ruled accidental, with no further investigation. For these families, it wasn't just grief they were battling. It was a deep sense of abandonment, of being told to accept a ruling they couldn't believe. As Pam fought for answers, another investigator, Gainan, became involved in the case. With the help of Drive West, an expert pathologist, they reviewed the autopsies and found signs of strangulation and post-mortem water entry. Red flags that pointed to something far more sinister than an accidental drowning. In Jason's case, the evidence seemed to point toward foul play, but no one wanted to hear it. As they continued their research, something even more disturbing began to emerge, a pattern. The more they dug into other cases, the more it became clear. The deaths were not isolated incidents. College-aged men, all from different parts of the country, were disappearing in the same manner. Intelligent, athletic, and well-liked, they were often found in or near bodies of water, sometimes miles from their last known location. And just like Jason, the official cause of death was drowning. But was it truly an accident? The more Gainan and Drive West uncovered, the more the pieces started to fit together in a chilling way. The victims shared an unervingly specific profile: college-aged, athletic men, often out at bars or parties the night they went missing. They were found days or weeks later, their bodies discovered in or near major water systems, always far enough from their last known location to raise questions. What made this case even more confusing was the fact that in several of these deaths, the victim's phone was missing or found damaged, further deepening the mystery. Then came the Smiley Face graffiti. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a coincidence, a symbol found near several crime scenes, but soon it became clear. The graffiti was not just a random mark. It was a signature, a calling card. It raised the question, were these deaths the work of a serial killer, or were they the result of something even darker? A coordinated effort by a network that had been operating for over 20 years? Believers in the Smiley Face Killer theory argue that the victims' deaths are far too similar to be random. The bodies were often found in water, sometimes far from where the victim was last seen. And in several cases, the bodies showed signs of strangulation or burns. According to these theorists, the Smiley Face graffiti was more than just a coincidence. It was a symbol of a ritualistic signature, one that said, "We were here," before the killers moved on. The theory proposed that these deaths weren't the work of a single individual, but rather a network of killers, each operating in different locations, but connected by the same symbol. It was a chilling idea, a network capable of recruiting new members, using digital footprints to communicate without ever being caught. A network with a singular goal, to send a message that no one could decipher, until now. But not everyone believes in the Smiley Face Killer theory. Skeptics argue that the smiley face is just a common symbol, found everywhere from bathroom stalls to sidewalks. It's statistically meaningless. They also point to the fact that these deaths occurred in places with a high rate of alcohol consumption, college towns near rivers. To them, it's a tragic case of young men making poor decisions while intoxicated, and nothing more. The deaths are a result of environmental hazards and alcohol, not a coordinated attack. The skeptics say the patterns that seem so obvious to some are nothing more than coincidences. They claim that we're seeing what we want to see, a story that fits into a larger narrative of a killer network, when the truth is much simpler. Sometimes accidents happen. Sometimes people make mistakes. But is that enough to explain the mystery behind these deaths? For the families who lost their sons, the pain doesn't just come from the loss. It comes from the unanswered questions. It comes from knowing that the system has closed the book on their sons' cases, refusing to look deeper. But for these families, the grief is compounded by a gut feeling that something isn't right. They aren't just mourning the loss of their loved one. They're mourning the truth they'll never get. And so, they fight to keep their voices heard, demanding that the cases be reopened and that the truth be revealed. For Pam, the mother of Jason Hawthorne, the pain is always there. But it's not just the loss of her son that haunts her. It's the fact that his death was ruled an accident when it felt anything but. And she's not alone in this fight. Dozens of families are still out there demanding answers. So what's the truth? Is it a coordinated effort by a network of killers? Or is it simply a series of tragic accidents? The truth may never be fully known. But for those who've lost loved ones, the ambiguity is the real punishment. The uncertainty lingers, a shadow that can never be shaken. Perhaps that's the scariest part of all, not knowing who is responsible or even if anyone is responsible at all. Maybe it's just a matter of bad luck. Or maybe it's something much darker than that. One thing is certain, this story has left a mark. It's not just about death. It's about unanswered questions, about the lingering unease that comes with not knowing the truth. And for the families, for the victims, for the investigators, the silence is deafening. Will the truth ever come to light? Only time will tell. Subscribe to the Afterdark for more chilling stories.